kerosene on her scarf, lies in the jetway. Airports don't sleep, they taxi. When the last red-eye sighs off the runway and the duty-free shutters roll down like eyelids that learned manners, the field changes languages. Day speaks in rolling suitcases and TSA trays, in families that mistake gate C12 for a living room. Night speaks in blue taxiway lights humming to themselves, in APU wine and glycol steam, in runway edge lights holding their breath. If you've never stood at an ops console at 2 in the morning with ground radar, painting little green myths across the screen, you don't know how a city can fold itself into kerosene and wait. My name is Mark, Night Airfield Operations Supervisor, Palomar International. On my belt, a badge that makes fences behave, a radio that calls me by my better self, a gerber that knows the difference between tight and cruel. On my cart, a binder of NOTAMs, a box of reflectors for when the wind changes its mind, a battered flashlight with a beam that can find a dropped cotter pin in 1,000 yards of dark. I can tell from the way a tug coughs whether its driver believes in maintenance or prayer. I know by the color of a PAPI that someone's flirting with a glide slope. I can feel in the soles of my boots if rubber buildup is about to ask for a letter to someone who hates the word closure. Lara, my wife, then curated evenings that made business class look like forgiveness. She ran partnerships for our flagship lounge, which is a cathedral for people who rent patience by the hour. She wore a narrow scarf tied on the inside of her left wrist, silk with little planes stitched so close they looked like secrets. On Wednesdays, when our orbits admitted it, she'd badge through the service elevator and melt into the back of my world like a contrail deciding who gets to see it. She'd sit on the corner of my ops console, one heel pressing into the stainless, two fingers slipping under my belt on the pretense of catching a loose thread. I'd put my mouth in the notch beneath her collarbone, the little runway where a voice gathers speed, and breathe until her shoulders changed professions. We were careful. ASDEX ground radar forgets nothing. A terminal camera keeps heat like a grudge. The first sign didn't bark, it winked. At 01:11, the airside service gate near the lounge logged held, 3S no read. At 01:13, the ramp camera for gate A7 blinked and refocused like an I2 near a mirror. At 01:15, inventory showed 2 champagne splits missing from the lounge with no corresponding check. A bottle of club soda returned like a bland apology. At 01:18, in the ops kitchenette next to the jetway controls, I saw it. A ring of lipstick on a plastic flute drying upside down, wintergreen red, peppermint with a hint of snow. Lara lives in fig and smoke. Wintergreen belongs to someone trying to be remembered from a distance. 2 nights later, the same minute put a hand on my neck. Held, 4S. The jetway intercom logged a brief activation with no boarding in progress, as if a throat cleared itself. On the rubber mat outside the service lift, a single sequin glinted like a lost star. Sequins don't grow at airports. We are high-vis and wool and the clean stubbornness of reflective tape. I'm not a cop. I heard metal and wind. But I believe in traces. In the training closet, we keep a bottle of UV developer for safety DMOS with new hires, the gentle stuff that teaches hands to confess. That night, I dusted a crescent under the latch of the airside service gate to the lounge, drew a whisper along the underside of the jetway handrail where someone steadies themselves when the floor is a rumor, and kissed a soft line on the back of the touchscreen for the door controller outside A7, where an eager thumb would land. I tied a hair-thin loop of monofilament across the staff-only entrance to the jet bridge. Nothing that could harm, only a truth fine enough to curl and die on the anodized threshold if disturbed. Then I looked at my reflection in the black of the de-icing camera feed and smiled the way a man smiles who already knows which drawer of himself he won't open. Lara came later, mouth amber, dress choosing to obey gravity only for style. She took a sip of my ops coffee, burnt, faithful, and pressed her palm to my sternum the way a load controller checks a manifest. "Your runway purrs," she said, not looking at me but at the string of blue lights slanting toward the dark hills. "It dreams," I said. "I make lists until it sleeps." My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not proof. Her shoulders softened the way a plan does when it stops posing and starts being real. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered, because I like to put uniforms on complicated things. "Open," she set the word between us like a jetway docking gently. "Not chaos, not cruelty. No one from your team, no one who signs my checks. We say it before, not after. Protection isn't a courtesy. We come first. Our bed is a border. This field," the runway lights blinked on cue, "is a sanctuary even if you never say it that way." I made a sacrilege joke about being sacristan of concrete. Her mouth removed the need to complete it. We wrote the pact with skin, no ink. Morning returned the monofilament like a small dead tide. Under UV, the crescents grinned, gate, rail, controller, at the height of human eagerness. Under the base of the jetway stairs, an earbud tip slept in dust like a clear conscience. Lara tames her hair with matte pins that don't attend parties. This little translucent thing was a soundtrack for an angle. His name arrived with a press kit framed like a boarding pass. Deacon Miles, Miles and Smiles host, layover Lux, seeks after-hours access to capture the romance of departures. He shook like he expected doors to open just because his hand noticed them. White sneakers that pronounced creative on our rubber mats. "I love a terminal at night," he told his videographer, a sentence as polished as a lounge spoon. His eyes measured the distance from the lounge to the jetway like a man who reads maps to feel tall in rooms. At home, the kettle sang like it knows jobs. Lara spread her fingers on the butcher block like a ground stop plotted to scale. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I shouldn't have brought that into your walls. I won't again. Not here." "What time?" I asked, the man of logs trying to wash a feeling with clock hands. "It's not the hour that cleans it," she said, and the truth had the right temperature to be cruel only if you held it wrong. We lasted a month like citizens of a polite checkpoint. She told me before. I put the UV back with the other useful lies. Deacon drifted through with his lens and his borrowed smile. The field breathed. Our pact felt like something you could roll a wheel chalk against. Thursday remembers what you owe. 01. 11 held. 5S0113 blink. 0115 flutes. On the staff cam, a silhouette paused to retie a sneaker lace with the posture of a man doing push-ups for the camera inside his skull. I didn't call security to invent morality. I signed off a rubber removal NOTAM and drove the runway in the cart, throwing my headlights in a slow, honest sweep over Tech's orange cones. I told my anger to sit like a dog I didn't choose. It sat badly but enough. We separated with the kind of competence you use for weather. Lara took a one-bedroom above a bakery where dawn changes the barometric pressure. She stole the singing kettle and left me our chipped ops mug, which is the right sort of joke. "Hate me clean," she said. "If you can't, file me under something you rarely open." "I label well," I said, and didn't ruin it. Work stitched me where I'd frayed. I signed a wildlife hazard report for a coyote who believes in runway 28 more than is good for either of us. I argued gently with a pilot who thought the crosswind advisory was a suggestion. I watched a rampai set chocks with hands that had learned something the hard way. and gave him the small nod we keep for truths we're not going to write down. She arrived at 02:47 with a pelican case and a braid stabbed through with a pencil. Ria, avionics tech from our contracted maintenance, had the calm of someone who speaks Hydra languages. Fiber, coax human. She wore black jeans that didn't ask for approval and a jacket that smelled like clean solder and rain that never makes the pavement wet. On her left middle finger, a pale scar curved like a comma where a bay door once tried to close a story early. We met for real under the belly of a 737 at gate A5, the plane's skin still clicking to itself. Ria pressed her ear to the access panel and tapped the aluminum with the back of her fingernail until a stubborn fan admitted it was pretending to work. "Respect, not force," she told the bay, and the airplane remembered manners. "Everything worth keeping," I said, angling my flashlight where she'd have asked if she were the sort to ask. Our fingers grazed when she took the driver. The electricity went the right way. Our first kiss happened in the avionics bay of an old MD-80 we use for training when the hangar has mercy to spare. We had killed the bus for testing, honest enough, and the emergency lights painted us impatient red. Ria set her palm on my sternum with the exactness of someone checking a breaker for heat. I put my mouth under her ear, that small country where breath negotiates for words, and the airplane stayed upright while we tilted. She kept her eyes open, not a dare, a gratitude. My hand found the side of her throat, greeting, not proof. We stepped apart before any logger could decide we were data. We laughed like professionals who count and chose not to count this. With Ria, precision wore tenderness like a uniform altered to fit in the shoulders. She likes my thumb resting on the pulse inside her wrist. She likes my refusal to hurry even when the ground crew calls for push and the world wants to taxi. She'll swing onto my lap in the tiny glass office off the ops floor, blind down, monitors dimmed, the field breathing beyond our ribs, and draw with a fingernail the path from PIDOT to ADC to PFD, turning a body into wiring diagrams I didn't know I needed. We made rules the airport could bless. Not in a jetway, not in a lounge, not where a camera remembers better than we mean to. Yes, in the hangar at 3 a.m. with fans humming like hymns. Yes, under the de-ice rig when the glycol steam writes uncertain psalms. Yes, on the roof of the garage where the big Delphi sign pretends to be a constellation we own. If you came for revenge in a pilot's wings, I'll waste your layover. I could have printed access logs and circled wintergreen and handed them to a GM who loves the theater of policy. I could have taught Deacon Miles the difference between allowed and invited. I could have made Lara learn the airport's memory the way I know it. But an airport is a sanctuary for departures. The soldier who stands at A3 pretending to be brave for his mother needs the concourse to keep its bargain. The janitor who hums to the terrazzo at 4 in the morning needs the floor to be a thing that forgives without asking why. Ria prefers me smelling like glycol and patience, not victory. Lara and I learned how to speak without turning nouns into knives. She kept the contract to stage our lights and flight fundraiser because she's excellent and I am not small. Sometimes she texts a photo of Basil in her window pretending to be a tree. I send back a still from ground radar at 4:03. A clean field, one van, a fox who thinks taxiways are ideas. Proud of you, she wrote the night I shepherded a medevac through a gusty crosswind with a voice like a straight, clean line. I let the words land, they didn't bite. Deacon still comes now and then, lenses in tow, making content out of other people's gravity. We passed near the staff elevators. He gave me the two-finger salute men learn from shows about men. "Night makes airports sexy," he said to me as if he were quoting himself accurately. "Night makes them honest," I said. "We keep it that way." He smiled the smile of a man who mistakes composure for permission, and slipped through a door that opens for polite insistence. Nights went back to being honest. A woman sat at the huge window in Concourse B, watching nothing because the nothing was behaving. I made one extra round and changed nothing. A ramp lead misread a headset gesture and corrected himself before the push. I made a note praising the catch, not the stumble. A storm line flirted with the field and decided to take its anger to the highway. The runway held its breath, then let it out. Sometimes I wake on the narrow cot in the ops office at a time. The clock refuses to put numbers on. If Ria's shin lies heavy across my thigh like a comma that knows where the sentence needs breath, I set my hand along her throat and wait for the small lift that means yes. The difference between an ending and a finish has a temperature. My palm reads it better than my mouth. Months after the bottle of light went back with the demonstrations, the foundation hosted Blue Lights Beneath, a gala whose checks help us pretend concrete is cheap. I wore black because black forgives uplighting. Lara stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter in the way decisions sometimes are. "Is she gentle?" she asked without saying Ria, because we finally learned how to offer names like gifts, not like weapons. "She's exact," I said. "It's my religion's word for good tenderness with a manual." "Be kind," she said, "not a blessing, an instruction." We clinked water because water keeps your hands honest, and the champagne had other duties. Near the model of the field, Deacon told a small orbit of sponsors that airports are cathedrals to modern desire. They tipped him with attention he had already priced. Let him keep it. I had a bird cannon to sign off, a runway to bless with a sweep I can feel in my knees, a woman waiting in a hangar where a fan will make weather if the night forgets. Airports don't do morals. They do tolerances and letters and closures, and 1,000 small rituals designed to keep strangers from breaking on each other in a place built for leaving. To the new ops tech, who will slip into my office at a savage hour with eyes too awake and ask what to do with the part of the job that won't live in a SOP, I will say what I say to myself when the field offers me a stage for my pride. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't let a jetway carry your grievance. Keep evidence if you must. Refuse the robe. Remember the soldier at A3, the janitor at 4, the woman who watches nothing because she trusts it. They won't wait for your forgiveness to depart on time. Before dawn, I run the runway like a hymn I learned with my feet. I step down and run my palm along the cool steel of a PAPI housing like I'm petting an old patient dog. "All green," I tell the radio, which is another word for the place behind my ribs. The small lights give me their small, honest truths. I silence things in the right order. I turn a key. The profession folded into one faithful click and walk into the hangar. Sometimes Ria is already there, pencil stabbed through her braid, smelling like clean solder and sleep. She sets her palm on my sternum like a tech who trusts her meters. I put my mouth under her ear where breath has the good sense to go first. I keep the only oath I ever took without paperwork. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I won't use this jetway to stage my revenge. If the log coughs again at 01:11, I will see it. I will choose a drawer, the one with powder or the one where patience sleeps, coiled like safety wire. Lately I open, look close, and choose patience. It looks good on concrete. It holds me upright. And when the first departure of the morning inhales the runway and the blue lights blink like nerves remembering their job, I go back to the console with kerosene in my nose, Ria's hand in mine, and the quiet certainty that tonight I carried the truth at the right speed.